All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Morgan Giss McDonald. I'm a writing coach and editor and author, and I own my own business, paperravenediting.com, and I work with authors. And on like a really regular basis, one of my authors' most common thing that they want to talk about is the anxiety that they experience around writing. And hello, Julia, welcome. And anxiety seems to crop up for everyone, like regardless of what kind of writing that you're doing, even if it's just like blog posts or really short articles, and it definitely shows up around like book writing. And so people just really struggle with like this, it's almost like performance anxiety. Like, I don't know if you've ever been like a musician or in theater or anywhere where you had to like get up on stage and like perform in front of people. Like, writers seem to experience the same type of performance anxiety, almost like they're standing up on stage and everyone's looking at them. And so I've kind of come up with some different strategies to help people cope with this. And different things work for different people, so I kind of wanted to talk through some things that you could try if you have ever experienced this. So let me know in the comments, like what type of anxiety do you experience around writing? Like, what kind of comes up for you? Oh, you hate writing, but you force yourself to do it. That's so sad to me. But I understand where you're coming from, because if writing doesn't feel like fun, then why would you ever want to do it? But usually when I'm talking people through this, it's sort of like you need to dig a little bit deeper about like, why are you anxious and why is it not fun? And a lot of times it's around things like, I'm not sure that I'm using the right words. I'm not sure that it sounds good. I feel like I sound kind of stupid. I ramble, or I only want to say five words in my sentence, and I want to just be done with it, and I don't want to say anything else. And so there's lots of like those sorts of feelings that kind of bubble up, and usually it kind of revolves all around just anxiety and feeling like you're being judged all the time. And so yeah, as I'm kind of talking through, if you have any like questions or anything, feel free to pop those in. If anything resonates with you, I would love it if you would just sort of tap the screen and send those hearts, so that I know what seems to be working for you. Like, I want to craft these scopes around you guys, and if I know what engages you, then I can give you more of that. All right, so let's jump in to some strategies that I've given some authors, and honestly I use myself. So the first way to sort of counter this performance anxiety is to write to yourself. So explain things to yourself. Like, pretend that you're just writing a memo or just some notes to yourself, and remind yourself that like, this is not permanent. This is just like you making some notes, and you can return and edit it and revise later. Just like, take the pressure off and just be like, I'm going to talk this out to myself, and write literally as if you're explaining something to yourself, and no one else is going to read it. And the only thing that you have to make sure that you do when you're writing to yourself is that you explain everything thoroughly. So some people are like, yeah, I'm writing, and you like write little outline kind of notes, like little bullet points and a phrase here and a phrase there. But that's not really going to help you when you come back to revise. So writing everything out kind of in full sentence, as if you're like explaining something in a conversation to yourself. But since it's just you in the room, you're not performing for anyone. Like, there's no one who's going to judge you. Just totally take that pressure off and just say, this is a memo, a note, a placeholder. It's temporary. I'll come back and I'll work it out later. But right now I need to get these words out, and I'm going to explain this blog post or this chapter to myself. So that's one. And then another one is, if you find it weird to talk to yourself, which I talk to myself all the time, but if you're not one of those people who talks to yourself all the time, then pretend like you're talking to another person, but not a stranger, right? You're talking to someone who is really empathetic and supportive and encouraging. So imagine you're having this conversation with someone, and you're explaining this blog post or concept or chapter to them, and they're like sitting at the table with you, and they're like nodding along, and they're super interested, and they're like, yeah, exactly, that's what I was thinking too, and they're really encouraging and supportive. So a lot of times when you feel judged, you feel like the other person is doubting you, or whoever's the anonymous person on the other side of the screen, you feel like doubting you or really skeptical or playing devil's advocate or whatever, and you have to like prove this thing to them or impress them or something like that. But kind of, but flip that person. Swap out who is in that place that you're talking to. Swap out the person that you're having the conversation with. You know, and if you have a real person that you like to talk to, use that real person. Like when I'm writing stuff out for my website, there's one client who I really connect strongly with on a couple of subjects. Like we talk a lot about this kind of emotional side of writing, and so I always pretend like I'm writing to her. And I imagine her, like I'm explaining something to her as I'm writing, and I imagine her like leaning into the conversation, being like really interested, like, yeah, exactly, like that's exactly what I'm thinking, go on, like tell me more, and an encouraging kind of voice back there. And then the third, so first is write for yourself, you know, internally close that door, pretend like no one's listening, and write a memo, a temporary memo to yourself. Second, write to another person who is really encouraging and supportive. And the third one, if you're really not into either of those, you can always try free writing for 5 minutes. Only 5. Super easy, super quick. And this type of free writing is a little bit structured in that you need a timer, like a real timer, even if it's just on your phone. And B, you're not free writing just whatever pops in your mind. You're free writing about a topic, so your blog post or your book or whatever. So you're putting that like intention in your mind. And then your goal is to type faster than you can think, which is a little bit weird at first. But it's only for 5 minutes, so you're trying to literally type as fast as you possibly can without hitting the backspace, without worrying about spelling or complete sentences. Just type as fast as you can. And you just want to like break through that like barrier. And once you get going, you're basically going to be having a conversation with yourself. But it's a quick way to like get into that conversation, because you have almost like an understanding with yourself, like, I'm only going to free write for 5 minutes. I can do that. I can do 5 minutes of pretty much anything except maybe hold my breath underwater. But you can do 5 minutes of free writing just as fast as you can, and then you'll feel that momentum kind of build up. And when that timer goes off, if you feel like you hit your stride, keep writing, you know, let it take off. So those are kind of ways to almost either get around or kind of burst through that feeling of anxiety performance. So I don't know if that is helpful to you guys, if there's any questions that kind of come up for you around anxiety around writing, or ideas for writing faster, better, more convincing. I try to scope every day about writing. If you want to hit that little person down there and follow me. I also, I forgot to mention this, I take scope notes. So let me show you what that is. I'll show you, there's a website that you can go to and take Evernote, paperravenediting.com/periscope. And that takes you to my website, and I'll get the replay up. And then down here there's a little thing that says Scope Notes, and if you click it, actually let me click the one for today's. It has my little Evernotes. Do you have writing performance anxiety? I almost typed writing performance anxiety into the broadcast title, but then I was like, I'm going to get some pervs around performance anxiety, so I did not. But I wrote out kind of what my thoughts were around this. So you can always reference that if you want. And you can check out my other scopes, paperravenediting.com/periscope. So in the meantime, keep writing. I'm here for you if you need anything. And we will catch you on the next broadcast. Y'all have a good evening and do some writing tonight, even if it's 5 minutes of free writing. Because no one's watching you. No one's reading what you're writing. Just write some stuff. Write some memos, get some momentum going, and you'll be surprised where it takes you. All right, y'all have a good evening. Catch you at the next broadcast.